Hello there, this is Douglas Rumbaugh, and I thought today we'd do something a little bit different. So I was messing around with Lutris. I've actually not used Lutris before. I've obviously know what it is, but it hadn't been something that I really needed until I realized that there were actually runners for, well, some of the games that you see loaded up here right now. So these are city builder games. There's a couple more that obviously there's more than just these two, but these are the two that I really liked. And they actually seem to work pretty well in Linux. This is basically just search for it in Lutris, hit install, and go. I haven't tweaked anything beyond that just yet. And they do work pretty well. So I thought it might be fun just to show playing some really old games on Linux. Why not? I've spent a lot of time playing these games back in the many years ago, elementary school days even, I think. So they're quite fun, or at least I remember them being quite fun. You can tell I've basically just installed it and made sure that it works. So let's hop on into this and run through a campaign or something and see how it goes. See how well I actually remember this. Now, what you're going to see is a lot of weird jitters and all of that. In fact, I can find this for long enough to accept. Hit proceed. Oh. No, don't do that. I want to proceed. There we go. This is actually working particularly badly right now. Give it a second. Okay, here we go. Proceed. And see all the buttons there for just a second. Come on. So I guess I should point out with this glorious display of, there it is. Aha! With this glorious display of horrible jankiness. I'm actually running this game. This game has no advantages going on right now. I'm actually running this using an unofficial patch to enable more display resolutions. So it's running in 1080p right now, which is something that it's not supposed to do. And the majority of the menu issues that you're seeing are a result of that patch. It's funny, the buttons are there and work. You just can't see them. So in any event, we're just going to play Zeus and Europa, and let's get out of this mess.
Follow a cow? The priestess from the oracle said to follow a cow? A peculiar command, to be sure, but then the priestess is never wrong. She promised that great things would come to the person who follows her cow until it lays down to sleep, and then builds a city on the spot. This person will be able to achieve something that 4 powerful men failed to achieve, and finally bring Europa back to Greece. The beautiful Europa was abducted years ago by a white bull, and has not been seen since. And thus the priestess's bovine-centric prophecy came to an end. The cow did not choose a very good spot. She fell asleep a short distance from a hideous multi-headed serpent that purportedly belongs to Ares. The monster is always ravenously hungry and eats everything that comes near him. Building a city here won't be easy, but the promised reward is irresistible.
Alright, so there's our backstory, and let's get into this. As you can see, the game itself works just fine. Let's go up here, and I'm actually going to turn the speed really far down for the moment while we get our bearings here. Okay, so what you just heard there was the monster that was referred about. The Hydra actually spawns in right here. Since I have the speed turned down, it's barely moving. And this is actually not going to be a problem for us right now. So it's sitting on top of marble, That's this grayish terrain here is where you can collect marble, which is a resource you need to collect if you want to build temples and things like that. But in this scenario, we don't have to build temples, or I guess they're called episodes in this game. We only need to achieve a population of 1,000, and we can very easily do that without worrying about this Hydra here. We're just going to ignore it. Now, the way this game works, if you're unfamiliar with it, is you build a city by placing down buildings, and you have to manage resources and all of that. Now, your basic components for your city are going to be, we need to get housing. The goal of this particular scenario is to house 1,000 people, so we're going to need to put in a bunch of housing for that. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's throw it, we'll just stick it here. There, something like this. I did go through at one point and kind of mathematically optimize this, but that was years ago and I don't remember, so we'll play it by ear and improve as we go. So let's start by throwing down some housing. Like that. Now, the people are going to come in, but since we're on 10% speed, they'll be arriving very slowly. Forget whether they come in from up here or down there, but we'll be getting people eventually. Now, before that happens, we also need to make sure that the needs of the people in the houses are being met. So that's going to be our next goal. We have to supply them with a couple things. We have to supply them with food, we have to supply them with water, we have to supply them with access to culture, and we also have to supply them with some, I don't want to call them luxury goods, but some higher end things like olive oil and fleece. And as we meet the needs of the citizens in these houses, the houses are going to upgrade and they can hold more people. So the first and probably easiest thing to deal with would be, let's just get some water going. And where is that? That would be under health and hygiene. Yeah, here it is. There we go. So we will want to get a water fountain going. We'll also need a maintenance office and a watch post. These are going to send out people that make sure buildings don't fall down. I'll show you what that looks like. And then we'll also drop an infirmary. And let's get some culture going as well with a gymnasium. Give them somewhere to exercise. And I'm going to turn the speed up so we can watch these people come in and all of this stuff get going. We won't put it at 100 yet, though. Okay, yes. There are employees needed because I have no people. Each of these buildings is going to employ some citizens. And one thing that's going to be one of the more tricky aspects of this game is scaling your population while making sure that you actually have employment for everyone. Because unemployment doesn't work so well. Here we go. These are the people coming in. So they're going to move into these houses and settle down. When we finally kill the Hydra, the dramatic music will go away. Okay. So here is our basic hut. This is the first tier house. And you can tell some information about it here. It will hold 4 people. Well, actually it will hold 8 people. So 4 occupants with extra room for 4. As the houses level up, they get bigger and can hold more people in the same amount of space. So let's see. Residents are happy. That's good. They forage the land for food. So the first things that we need to worry about getting these people access to is going to be, well, water, which we already have there, and food. Now, food is actually going to require us to set up some infrastructure to supply it. So we'll deal with that in just a moment. But you can see we have some workers coming in, so these things are opening up. Now, these guys here
this city needs a little work around the edges.
Are what are called walkers, I believe, and they're let out by these buildings. So all of these buildings are going to send a walker out, and that walker is going to walk through the city, and any building that it passes is going to basically get the benefit of that walker. So the superintendent is going to help make sure that buildings don't collapse or catch fire. If you have a building that hasn't been visited by a superintendent in a while, it's going to have a risk of collapsing or burning down.
Unrest in the city? Shut your mouth. things are peaceful here.
Watchmen, they're basically police. So they're usually on the lower difficulties, especially, they're not that significant. They will fight attackers and monsters and stuff, although they're not very effective. But they mostly are just there to stop criminals if crime should be a thing. You also have a physician here, which is going to prevent disease. And you have an athlete, which is culture.
They should get in shape and find jobs.
All right, so you can actually pull up these overlays. All right, yay! I'm not going to worry about that right now. These overlays will let you see basically access. So if I flip on this athletes, you can see this shows all of the houses that have access to an athlete. And we also have actors, philosophers, and competitors, which are the other kinds of culture. And let me turn the sound volume down a little bit more here, just in case. I think it's okay, but so yeah, and we can see the same thing for water. These are the houses that have been visited by the water carrier. Hygiene is visited by the doctor. Hazards, you can see there's a risk of fire, and as the guy goes by, that risk goes away. So this risk is going to gradually build up over time on all of your buildings, and he will, the superintendent will basically get rid of it when he passes. And unrest is the same way. Occasionally, the watchman's going to keep unrest down. As long as we don't overtax our people, we have a reasonable supply of food, which we'll get to in just a minute, and our unemployment is decent. We shouldn't have to worry too much about unrest, I don't think. I never had a serious problem with it that I can remember. Now, one thing you may notice is we have these guys walking, and they will, when they pass an intersection, they're basically going to randomly decide to either go this way or go this way. Now, for all of these guys that we have here, this is what would be called a housing block. And these guys all should stay within the housing block. We don't want them wandering off down the road here because that's going to be wasting their time over here. And perhaps not getting them to some houses in the block that they should. So what we can do is we can actually add something called a roadblock right there. And this is basically going to prevent them from turning. So unless someone actually needs to go down this path, they won't. And so this is a pretty good housing block going now. The next thing we have to do is we have to deal with food. So this particular campaign is quite nice because you actually have access to pretty much everything that you need within your city. And some campaigns, to increase the difficulty, you'll have to purchase certain critical components from other cities. But here we have access to a couple different kinds of food that we can use. So we can put down a wheat farm to grow wheat. We also have access to goats for cheese. And then we have sheep, which is fleece, and we have olive trees for olive oil, which are the two other resources that we need to actually fully upgrade a house. Once we, I'll tell you what, we'll give them food, and then we'll see how we need to give them fleece as well. So to begin with, we're going to have to put down some farms right here. Now you'll notice I can't stick a farm just anywhere. It has to be on this meadow terrain here, the purplish stuff. So this is the only spot you can put a farm. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go off. Uh-oh. There's not much that we can do about that, I don't think. When they get here, we might be able to pay them off. That's unfortunate. So there's also a military aspect to this game, although it's one of those things that it's kind of there, but this isn't a military game, so you don't do much with it. We'll just pay them off when they get here. So let's go ahead and put in some farms. How should I do this? Let's do that, I think. Can I fit a wheat farm there? Yeah. Okay, so let's just plop down 3 farms ought to be good. And we're of course going to need a maintenance office to keep these from collapsing. And we'll lock that maintenance guy back there too. Now I always do this where I kind of have a ton of maintenance offices scattered everywhere. It's not the most efficient way in terms of employment, but usually I have unemployment problems anyway, so it helps. So here we go. All right, so we're being attacked. We can fight to defend the city, although I have 0 of anything with which to defend, so that would not go well. And we could surrender, at which point, well, honestly, surrendering and fighting are the same at this point, except fighting is going to result in them destroying buildings. We have to basically pay them tribute, as I recall. But you can also just bribe them, and they will go away. So pay some money, and they leave you alone. Eventually, we're going to have to deal with those guys. So let's see here. Now that we're now growing food. So as you can see, each wheat farm is going to employ 10 people, and it will grow food over time. We're going to need somewhere to actually put that food. So I'm going to go ahead and plop down a granary. Now, a granary is a storage building. What was that? Oh, Python games. A granary is a storage building that stores food. So when the farms finish growing the wheat, you'll see some guys with carts are going to pop out of the farm and drop it all off in the granary. So we have growth and storage, production and storage. We're of course also going to need distribution. Now to do that, oh, here we go. So see, they're going to walk over and you'll see the wheat popping into the granary. It doesn't help the people in our houses get the wheat though. So the next thing that we need is to set up distribution. We can do that quite easily using, distribution, an agora. So an agora goes down just like that. And into an agora, you can place shops. So as you can see, we can put in food, fleece, oil, and wine. A common agora will hold 3 of these. So we'll go ahead and put in food right now. There's no reason to put a wine vendor in right now because this common housing doesn't use wine. So there's actually 6 types of resources that you can distribute to houses. Let's see if I can remember what they are. I believe it's wine, armor, and chariots. Here you can see if someone went to the granary, they're grabbing the food, and they're going to take it back to the agora. And now the agora is going to spawn a guy with a cart who's going to walk around, and there we go. And you can see the houses are upgrading. So they actually upgrade twice. I'm not sure what I think shacks might need water. Might be the upgrade thing. Or it might be a culture. I'm not sure. But they upgrade twice through shack into hovel. And now we're at our next gate where we need some fleece. But we'll get to that. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so there are the 6 resources, 6, that you can distribute to houses. Food, fleece, and olive oil, which are required for your basic housing like this. And then I believe it's wine, armor, and horses in this, and chariots in the expansion, if I remember correctly, which are used for what's called elite housing, which we can't put in just yet. Your elite housing is where you get actually meaningful military from. So there we go. Now, our goal is to reach a population of 1,000. We're a third of the way there. And there are 2 strategies we could use in order to accomplish the goal of getting up to 1,000. We're going to want that, so let me just plop down a storage yard. So a storage yard is a storage building for things that aren't food. What was I saying? Right, we could either put in a whole bunch of housing at this level and just supply them with food. Here we go. Or we can upgrade these houses. I'm going to focus on upgrading these houses. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that there's enough houses here that if we get these all the way up to townhouse, which I believe is the highest level, it's either townhouse or apartment. I forget which is top and which is an ultimate, but I think that'll hold 1,000 people. Oh, actually, almost certainly. We're about halfway there now. People are still moving into these hovels. So let's go ahead and get fleece going. Although first, I think we're going to need more food, because I don't think these 3 farms are going to cut it. We're out of food. And our population is growing, so let's throw in some more farms. You have this this funny balance where you don't necessarily want to overproduce, because what'll happen if you overproduce is you have to just keep putting in more granaries to hold all the wheat, and eventually you're like, this granary, if we're overproducing over time, this granary will fill up. I'll have to drop in a second one and then a third one, and every time you do that it requires workers, and it just gets to be a mess. Oh, here we go. See, we did not have enough food production. See all these houses, basically they ran out of food, and so they devolved and kicked everyone out. So yeah, we definitely needed more food. This is just a minor thing. Once the food supply gets going again, then we'll be okay. So we'll see if this is enough food. Yep, and now of course, were this at a different time, this could be actually pretty bad, because then you start running out of the workers that you need to actually keep everything running. But since we had a lot of food in the supply chain, it just hadn't made it here yet, we'll be okay. It's a bit like the toilet paper situation. It's not, the store shelves are empty, but there is plenty in the supply chain. So it wasn't devastating. Okay. Fleece. Fleece is next. We want fleece. Now the way that you get fleece is with sheep and a carding shed. So this is going to work differently from food. We have this building here called a carding shed. Let me plop down a pair of carding sheds. Now each carding shed is going to do nothing on its own. However, I can then go into this meadow and drop down sheep. So we'll just get as many sheep as we can. There we go. So that's the requisite number of sheep for 2 carding sheds. And the carding sheds are going to send out shepherds that are going to tend the sheep. And over time, this is going to produce fleece, which is going to go into our storehouse here. And again, we want to distribute that fleece to our people, so let's go ahead and drop down a fleece vendor. And that should do that. As a matter of fact, now I'm going to speed things up. Just to get the fleece going so we can see what we need next. Because this can take a minute. Okay, so Caledon actually needs fleece. Hopefully we produce enough that we'll have it in stock. You want to try and satisfy the demands of people, because you want them to like you. If you don't, bad stuff can happen. Plus, if they like you a lot and you say run out of money, they might bail you out. This is useful. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and slow things down just a bit now. So as you can see, these sheep over time, they go white, and then the shepherds go and collect the fleece. So we're accumulating fleece now in our storehouse. Do we still not have enough food production? Now, I think we'll be okay until the next harvest. Because that should be pretty soon. We have a lot of farms. We do, like, our storehouse is empty. Okay, so here are as these guys get fleece, the houses are going to upgrade to a homestead. So remember, we started out with holding 8 people in one spot, and now these are holding 32, which is quite nice. All right, so we got fleece and food, and next they're going to need more culture. But first, I want to make sure that our food situation doesn't go south very quickly here. I think we'll be okay. So I think you get that you need more food pop up whenever you have no food in your granaries anymore. But we actually, no, okay, yeah. We still have food at the Agora, so we're definitely okay. If anything, we might be slightly overproducing, which is a good spot to be in. Hold up. How do you do this? Caledon wanted. Yep. I'm dispatching the fleece before that that Agora guy can get there and take it all. There we go. Oh, by the way, this is the world map. As you can see, this is definitely not designed for 1080p. Ordinarily, were it not for the patch, this would be all the bigger that the window is. But in any event, this is the world we're living in. This is Thebes. That's us. Mount Cithaeron, or Cithaeron rather. These are the guys who were attacking us earlier. And then we have Eleusis, Argos, Caledon, Pelion, Gnosis, and Libya off in the distance. So as you can see, you can actually trade with cities and they'll buy and sell things. And you can trade with anybody who's, well, you can trade with your allies basically. We can't trade with this guy because he's a rival. He's he's not friendly towards us. And then Gnosis here is basically not significant yet. This thing means like the arrow means a distant city, and then the little dot there just means it's still insignificant. But usually when you have a city with a little dot over the course of the campaign, it's going to turn into an actual city. I forget if Gnosis turns out to be friendly or aggressive in this campaign. I'm thinking that they're not friendly. They're definitely not friendly in the Athens one. All right. Yep, and he likes us more. You guys are not getting water. Uh-oh. Let me watch this water carrier. So, the water carrier... there's our problem. The water carrier is kind of the limiter for the size of a housing block. Basically, each walker is going to travel a certain maximum distance before they go back to where they started. And so you need to make sure that your housing blocks are small enough that your water guy can make it all the way around. And as you can see, he's not. He's going around this way and back, and then he's going this way and back. So the way that you avoid that is you make your housing blocks smaller. I don't want to tear this out though, so I'm just going to stick a second one in this corner, a second fountain, and that should take care of that problem for us. I forget exactly how many blocks he walks. When does he turn around? All right, so he goes from here to there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 5, 27, and half of that, because he goes to his maximum and then walks back. I think he only goes 13. So what you want to try and make it happen is that when he walks around, when he gets to, say, this point right here, you want the point at which he stops to be such that going the rest of the way around the block is faster than going back the way he came. That way he goes one full circuit instead of just covering half the block. Like I said, we'll just deal with that like this for now. Oh yeah, we are definitely overproducing food. This is what I was talking about. We're gonna have some food just sitting around, but that's okay. Anywho, next step. These hovels. Okay, so you'll notice that even though we have fleece going, some of these hovels have not turned into homesteads just yet. The reason for that is because there's also this thing called desirability that affects whether a house upgrades or not. Now, these homesteads out here are kind of facing out towards nothing. So they don't have any significant negative desirability effects. However, on this side of the place, they're close to these farms, and these farms can actually hurt desirability. So you can see this area here has neutral appeal, but over here we have somewhat unappealing, which is probably because of our agriculture. So if you want to fix that, you have to put in some beautification, say some parks. Now this can get expensive, but there you go, 200 bucks gone. But that gets those houses upgrading, so we'll do it. And I think that might actually be close to enough. No, we may still have to go one more level. Now, before we do that, though, you'll notice we're running a little bit low on money. Now, ordinarily, you make money by selling things, right? By exporting. So we could set up trade. These are how these trading posts and piers and whatnot are how you actually conduct trade with your other cities. But unless we have someone who's willing to buy wheat, oh, that could work. Onions and marble, that's useless. Wheat, that's good. That's a rival. Argos, sculpture and wine, not something we have. Okay, so let's do a Mount Pelion trading post here. And we can actually sell off some of this excess wheat that we're producing. And that'll be a pretty good way to make some extra coin. Drachmas, as they're called. So what we can do is we can say we're selling wheat. Now wheat doesn't sell for very much, and that'll give our wheat somewhere to go. So now, in addition to stashing wheat in the granary, this trading post functions as a bit like a storehouse, and sometimes traders will come by and actually remove it from there and give us money for it. Now we can only sell 24 per year, so there's a limit on how much you can sell. But that'll give us some way to get rid of some of this excess wheat that we're producing because I overreacted and put in too many farms. So that's good. And now the other thing that we can do is we can put in some taxation. This isn't a lot of money, but it's a trickle. So we can do a tax office. However, I can't put it in yet because we need to put in a city palace first. So let's do that. Now, I don't know. I always like to put my palaces up on these acropoli, right? This is an acropolis. That's what it's called. Just because that's what was done in Greece. It's usually your cities would grow around what's called an acropolis, a big elevated area like this, which is where you'd stick your important municipal buildings and temples and stuff. And so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go ahead and put my palace up here. And then later on, we'll also need to call in a hero to deal with that Hydra. And we'll put that up here too if we can. May even put a temple up here. Be a little bit pushed for space, but I think we can manage. We'll stick the palace here. Give that guy a road connection. Forget what hero we need, actually. Who killed the Hydra? I don't remember. Hercules, wasn't it? I think it was Hercules, but I don't think we call in Hercules in this scenario. We'll just go ahead and make sure our palace doesn't collapse. We'll do more with this Acropolis later. For now, I'm just going to drop the palace there, and now I can stick a tax office down. And so this is going to send out a tax collector who runs around and collects taxes. So we'll be able to get a little bit of money from that. The higher level the house, the more money you get from taxing it. Okay, and we are actually very close to our objective. In fact, are these houses all full? I think so. So the thing that's going to push us over the edge is our next round of upgrades. Now these houses cannot evolve because some buildings in the area have reduced the appeal of the neighborhood. Actually, that's not what I'm looking for. Down here. There we go. They need more cultural venues. So apparently I'm going to have to do something about the appeal up here if I want these guys to advance. But the real thing is I need to get more culture. So the gymnasium, which produces these athletes, is the easy one. Yeah, we're working on it.
Get in shape and find jobs.
I'm working on giving them jobs, don't worry. We also can put in drama and philosophy. So the way this works is, we'll use philosophy as the example. Although, can I fit? I better be able to fit a theater in here. Yeah, I can. Okay. Theaters are kind of big. The way that philosophy works, and theater as well, is you have the actual, this podium building or the theater. However, the podium and the theater don't actually send out a walker on their own. You need to build another building. For in the case of philosophy, it's a college, to train them. What will happen is the college will train philosophers who will go to the podium, and then from there will do their little circle around. Let's go ahead and put this guy in. And I'm gonna stick the college somewhere else, just so I don't cover up all of my precious meadow with buildings. Let's just go ahead and stick our college over here. Should I stick it over there? Maybe. We'll stick it up here, I think. So I'm gonna want a, where was it? I need a college. And while we're at it, let me also just drop another granary up here, because we desperately need more food storage. If it weren't for the jobs situation, I'd just say turn off a farm. But we do have unemployment problems. How bad is it? Oh yeah, no, we have really bad unemployment problems. And it's just gonna get worse. Unemployment is really tricky in this game. Once we start getting like masonry stuff going, we can probably ease that back just a little bit. But there we go. So now our homesteads are advancing to tenements. And that should definitely put us over the edge to completing this scenario. Now we just gotta wait for some people to come in. I'll speed it up. There we are. Population milestone, 1,000 people. And that is the scenario.
Thebes is beginning to thrive. Yet the multi-headed menace still plagues the land, and the city will never be truly great as long as it counts the monster as one of its residents.
You'll never guess what we're doing in the next episode. I'll be willing to bet we're taking down that Hydra. So yeah, that is Zeus, and its expansion Poseidon is much the same. Running in Linux. The menus are a little bit wonky, but if you can get past that, the game itself plays just fine. So I'm gonna actually just finish out this campaign. I'll just run through the whole thing and record it right up on the channel. You'll have to let me know if this thing interests you. I know it's not really a gaming channel or anything like that, but this might be interesting. So yeah, we'll cut this video here, and in the next episode we'll take on the second episode of this campaign, which probably involves bringing down that Hydra.